Hello, today I'm going to be discussing the biographical information behind the poem Barbie Doll by Marge Piercy. Marge Piercy was born in 1936 in Detroit, Michigan, and although her parents were not religious, she was raised to be Jewish by her grandmother. And both her mother and her grandmother were huge influences in her decision to become a writer. Her mother specifically influenced her journey into being a poet because her mother had her reading constantly when she was a child and had Marge really focus on the little details of writing and just remembering all those little details. And then Marge's grandmother had her interested in writing stories because her grandmother just told amazing stories that were filled with great detail that kept her captivated throughout her life. So both of those people were huge influences in her life. During high school, Marge won a scholarship to the University of Michigan, so she was actually able to be the first person in her family to go to college. Uh, Academically, college wasn't difficult for her. She was able to get great grades, and she was able to win scholarships and awards for her writing that allowed her to stay in school and not have to work to support herself. She was even able to earn a scholarship to get a master's degree in France. Unfortunately, however, the other parts of college life were not so pleasant for Marge. She really struggled to fit in with people because she didn't fit the gender stereotypes of a woman in the 1950s. She was really achievement driven, she had strong goals for her personal life and her career life, and that was just uncommon for somebody of her day as a woman. And she also had really unpopular views of sexuality and just other gender stereotype things. The fact that she didn't conform well to those gender stereotypes actually even cost Marge her first marriage. After her marriage ended and she had her master's degree, she moved to Chicago, Illinois, where she really continued to rebel against all the gender stereotypes even more fiercely. She wrote about politics, she was driven in her work. She would show up a couple hours early to work every day and she would spend hours writing. She even entered an open marriage where multiple people were entering and leaving the marriage and the house with her and her husband, so that was very odd for her time to be okay with as a woman. She was also passionately involved in civil rights while she lived in Chicago and then later on in her life as well. She was able to start several civil rights organizations. Unfortunately, the fact that she was really politically motivated and she had really strong feminist views made it difficult for a lot of her writing to get published. People in that day didn't want feminist writing. They didn't really want a woman's political writing either. And it really wasn't until her third marriage that Marge really felt like she could blossom in her writing, because for the first time she had somebody who supported her views and supported her writing and didn't just put her down for it. Now, to discuss specifically how Barbie Doll relates to her life, we need to go through and look at the details of the poem first. The first section of the poem really discusses the different toys that were given to girls because of their gender roles. Women were expected to care for the home and do child care and cleaning and cooking, so they were given toy irons and fake ovens and Barbie dolls that peed, according to the poem. They were expected to present themselves in a certain way, which is why even as a child she was being given lipstick. And women would be outcasts if they didn't meet these images of how they should look and what they should be doing. Then the second section of the poem shows the great features that the girl in the poem possessed, but she was forced into feeling inferior because those qualities weren't the qualities that society thought she should have. She was intelligent, she was physically strong, she had a burning sex drive, she worked well with her hands, but even with all those qualities, she felt like she had to constantly apologize for who she was because they only saw her for having a big nose and chubby legs. Moving on to the third segment of the poem, it showed all the advice that people would give the girl so that she could hopefully become what society wanted her to be as a woman. But unfortunately, even though she tried constantly, she couldn't maintain those standards of what a woman should be. She was supposed to eat right, she was supposed to stay in the right shape, she was supposed to act a certain way, be polite all the time, be quiet in the presence of other people. But she couldn't take it all, she couldn't be that person that society told her to be, so she took her own life. In the final segment of the poem, it talks about the girl's funeral. She was finally covered in makeup and done up by the caretaker to look perfect, and everybody said, "Oh, she looks so pretty." So the story closes out by saying, people thought she was pretty and she got her happy ending, because that was what she'd tried so hard to get, but she'd never had it in life. Um, the technical aspects of Barbie Doll and how well it was written are easily explained by Marge's excellent education, but to understand the topic and the contents of the poem, we really have to look into who Marge was as a person. She was an outcast during her college years, like I discussed earlier, because she could never fit into societal gender roles. Even as a young girl, she didn't really fit in with what was considered normal for a girl because she was fiercely curious, she wanted to spend a lot of time reading and learning, and she wasn't even really viewed as pretty as a child because she was really thin and just frail from her illnesses. So, she even was losing her marriages because of her failure to fit into gender roles. And those struggles no doubt led to her having those feminist viewpoints of her later life. Marge wanted to use her writings to help change people's views on political subjects and society issues, and Barbie Doll is no exception to that. Fortunately, Marge's struggles didn't end in suicide like the girl in the poems did, but it certainly did cause a great deal of pain for Marge. Now, the poem wasn't a direct story of her own life, obviously, but many of the small details in the poem can be seen to line up with things that happened in Marge's life. Instead of being a homemaker and cooking and cleaning and just staying at home and looking a certain way, Marge cared about her work and her writing and being a successful person. She didn't fit into the image and physical and sexual roles either, so that's what that whole makeup section where it's talking about the cherry candy colored makeup, you know, she didn't fit into that standard. She wasn't pretty enough. But instead of remaining quiet and polite like a woman was supposed to in those days, Marge was compelled to be a strong voice against injustice and war and just all those society issues. And that led to a great deal of pain in her life, just as failing to be what society told the girl in the poem to be ended in suicide. Um, the girl in the poem had to die before she had her happy ending. Um, and Marge, even though she didn't die physically, she had to lose 2 husbands before she had her happy ending where she could finally be who she wanted to be. I hope you enjoyed the little discussion of why Barbie Doll was written the way it was and what it really is about. Have a great day.